Good evening. Welcome to Queer News Tonight. This is the world's first and only LGBTQ+ daily evening television news, broadcasting live and on demand. Available on all smart televisions, including Roku, Apple TV, Android TV, Amazon Fire TV, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and even Spotify. It's time to queer up the news. It's Thursday, February 9th, 2023. We are live and literally out of the closet and into the headlines. So many of your important stories we're going to tell this evening on Queer News Tonight.
This is the world's first live daily LGBTQ evening news show, literally out of the closet and into the headlines on Queer News Tonight with Al Ferguson.
I'm your anchor at Queer News Tonight, David Hopkins. This evening we bring you the news of and perspective representing the LGBTQ+ community from South Florida, America, and across our planet.
This is the world's first and only unedited live LGBTQ+ evening news show. Whatever happens unique in LGBTQ+ news, you will see it and hear it.
Happening Out Television Network is a 501c3 nonprofit media platform in the television and radio model of PBS and NPR, but designed for our LGBTQ+ community.
We are part of one of the largest LGBTQ+ media companies in America, Hotspots Magazine and Happening Out Television Network.
Our magazine is celebrating 38 years of the LGBTQ+ experience, and our television news, talk, and entertainment shows support our mission to educate the LGBTQ+ and broader community.
And let's begin by welcoming anchor Chef Josie. She's a Bravo TV top chef and the master of the popular champagne and oyster celebration restaurant Bubbles and Pearls, right in the heart of famous Wilton Drive. She's also known by her alter ego, DJ Lady Snack Daddy. Welcome, Chef Josie.
Thank you, David. So nice to be here, as always. Next, let's welcome anchor Buddy Frey. Buddy is a longtime South Florida resident. He enjoys our large, diverse community and supports many of our local nonprofit organizations like Julian's Fountain of Youth and the Stonewall National Library Museum. Welcome, Buddy.
Thank you. And let's welcome anchor Dale Stine. With a background in music and the arts, he is a well-known photographer, famous for his photographs of internationally acclaimed DJ, drag personas, and other entertainers, including our very own Frey. He is presently the Director of Music Ministry at the Unity on the Bay, as well as moderator of South Florida's largest LGBTQ+ Facebook group, Miami Gay List, which can be found on Instagram as @GayListOfficial. Good evening, Dale.
Thank you so much. It's always awesome to be here. Let's welcome anchor Bob Hentschel. Bob is an accountant with a local construction company. He's a member of the planning committee for My Hollywood Pride and a member of various LGBTQ+ Disney Facebook groups, including the Gay Pride Disney Monorail Crawl. He describes himself as a nice widow man with a house in Dania Beach, a Disney Vacation Club membership, and a self-supporting cash flow. Interested singles can find him on Facebook and Twitter as Bob Hentschel. Welcome, Bob.
Thank you, Dale. And this year's Monorail Crawl is Wednesday, May 31st, starting at the Outer Rim Lounge at the Contemporary at 7 p.m. And lest I forget, Fly Eagles Fly. We are the reporters for Queer News Tonight, and this evening we begin with the queer headlines. The LGBTQ+ community in South Florida and across America is diverse. Our community across the world is vast, and here are the bullet points of the queer news for today, Thursday, February 9th, 2023.
And we begin tonight's show by queering up entertainment. Controversial representation of gay characters in Shyamalan's Knock at the Cabin, stirring debate.
Hi there. Can I talk to you for a little bit?
You have to come inside right now. There were 4 of them.
What do we say? You shouldn't make things up when we're talking about...
Can you open the door, please?
They're breaking in!
How could you, baby? We're not here to hurt you, but you have to stay here in the cabin with us. Families throughout history have been chosen to make this decision. You Your family must choose to willingly sacrifice one of the three of you to prevent the apocalypse.
We're not sacrificing anyone.
For every no you give us, hundreds of thousands of people are going to die.
It's really happening.
Sweetheart, close your eyes.
Will you make a choice?
You have to somehow trust us.
We're normal people just like you.
It doesn't matter. None of us believe you.
We will never choose anyone.
I'm afraid the rule is that no one's allowed to leave until you choose.
Do you really think it's all just a coincidence?
I have to believe that.
My son is gonna die. His name is Charlie. As a mother, I am begging you.
You're the only one who can stop this.
Andrew, I saw something. There was something in the light. And I feel it now.
I'm taking my family and I'm leaving.
If you fail to choose, the world will perish.
We've been given the chance to decide the fate of everyone.
Time's running out on the world.
I'm scared.
There is nothing more flawed and perfect in this world than our family.
Please make a choice.
Always together.
Always together.
I will ask for the last time. Will you make a choice?
M. Night Shyamalan's new film is the rare studio genre movie to center on queer characters. It's a positive sign for sure, but it's attracting controversies. The thriller focuses on the idea that God will punish us all if a gay couple doesn't rip apart their family. We see the waves rising and skies falling via news reports each time they refuse to do the unimaginable, and the contrast between the two privileged gay men choosing their own safety and happiness over the fate of the world becomes increasingly absurd, as if we have no choice but to root for their destruction. Some referred to it as a weirdly conservative parable. Even ChristianAnswers.net reviews respect the film's decision to show, quote, what can happen when tried and true family unions are forsaken for untested alternative arrangements, end quote. The concept behind this is very interesting. It's been done with Cabin in the Woods, which is one of my favorite horror movies of all time, because it takes a different direction than what you expect. It's the people have to sacrifice. The sacrifice has to be chosen by the people amongst those to be sacrificed. And it's a trope that's been used, but it's interesting to use a gay couple and their child in this situation.
Well, I love it that, that the movie is using a gay couple and their child as the family who is making the final choice. Right. Because you never know who your maker will be that day, right? And in this world that we're living, where we don't put value on each other anymore, and now you have to look a certain way and be a certain kind of person and have a certain kind of politics. Maybe the underlying story here is really that maybe we should just love each other and really accept and love each other. Be friends.
It's interesting too, this horror flick coming out on the heels of The Last of Us, considering the third episode with the gay couple, which was such an amazing love story in the midst of all the horror. It's just interesting timing with media and film and such with the gay world.
I haven't seen any of these things, but it sounds like what little reading I've done on it, it always seems that we cannot have a happy ending. And that's my problem with this. Where's my happy ending? Because, for centuries, they have been doing this to us, the tragic gay character.
Well, and I feel like in this situation, that's kind of the point, because gay people have to fight so hard to have that normal life. And then when you finally get it, to have to choose between that normal life or the world ending makes it even more painful for the main characters. And it comes to the point where you want the world to be saved, but that happy ending that you could almost have, and it makes it more impactful.
Let's queer up trans rights. Wales and Scotland defy Westminster on trans rights. Welsh government unveils the LGBTQ+ action plan. The Welsh government has unveiled a new LGBTQ+ action plan, which includes proposals to make it easier for trans people to change their legal gender. This comes just weeks after Westminster announced that it would attempt to block similar legislation put forward by the Scottish government on the basis that it risks conflicting with the UK's existing equalities law. To legally change their gender, people across the UK currently have to apply to a gender recognition panel and usually have to obtain a medical diagnosis of gender dysphoria first. The Welsh government is proposing to swap this process out in favor of a system based on self-identification, which is similar to the law recently passed in Scotland and increasingly in line with international norms. Well, this is, it's interesting because the Scottish government are trying to be more realistic in the timeline of everything, in terms of the reality of the process, trying to take away the medical issues, even though they do rely a little bit on it. They're also planning to shorten it, change the age from 18 to 16, which is going to be interesting. But unfortunately, because the UK government dominates Scotland, it's not that easy in the UK. So they're still on the 2-year process with a long medical history and thousands of documents or tons of documents plus fees. And so it's going to be interesting to see who budges first. I kind of bet it's going to actually make England come closer to Scotland and Scotland closer to England.
Well, I'm going to add a little something to the mix for this story. I follow a very handsome and very married gay Episcopal priest in Canada who posted on his timeline today, a Church of England synod voted to bless same-sex couples. They still won't call it marriage. And his words, it creates a second class of covenant relationships. It is a painfully slow step in the right direction. So, it's an interesting time that we live in that, Westminster wants to strike it down, and meanwhile the Church of England is taking, admittedly, a crappy step, but nevertheless a step in the right direction.
Well, in this situation for trans people, it also creates a second class because not everybody has the medical resources, the income to go through the therapy and the treatment for the gender dysphoria diagnosis.
The gender identification panel, which I've never heard of.
Yeah, but
it sounds horrifying.
Gender and sex are very different things.
Yeah.
Sex are the physical characteristics. Gender is how you identify. Having to go through all that stuff for sexual confirmation, gender confirmation surgery is one thing, but to be able to live your life as you authentically feel should be easier.
So I'm probably going to be the one out at this table right now, and I'm going to say this, but when we can decide, okay, and I'm going to be the devil's advocate right now, but when we can decide, today, I identify as he, him. Tomorrow, I identify as she, her. Maybe the next day I'm going to be, or a rock. And then all of a sudden now you're self-identifying, okay? And that's fine in our social circles, correct? But what I think is on the table right here is the legality of it and how we then incorporate that into all the paperwork that goes into living your life and being a citizen of whatever nation you are a part. Yeah, So I'm, I want to know where then are we, where is that, that happy place? Where's that compromise? Where do we come to the table and go, okay, well, this will be okay for this process? And I think that there needs to be more trans people at the table, and I think there needs to be more LGBT at the table helping to lead these conversations and shape these legislations, and then then there would be no confusion. There wouldn't be Westminster against Scotland,
On the Scottish end, they do have a lot more trans input. On the British end, it's still the old upper crust with the legal process of you can do A, B, and C, but you can't do D, E, and F, and we have to have 16 people involved in the process. And from what I've done research on, the Scottish are just saying, look, we don't need 75 people in this process. We need one doctor and the person. And, and that's why they're trying to change the age from 18 to 16. And it seems to be a little more, it's a 6-month process versus a 2+ year process. And then it's also the documents, your birth certificate, your legal documents, your visa, your passport. So, which
are documents that we already kind of are born with, right? Those are.
So again, it seems like Scotland's trying to get Westminster to come more to the middle and say, look, you may dominate us, but we need to be our own laws here. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah, it will be. So next, let's queer up health. Compared to 70% of straight community, almost all older LGBTQ Americans got vaccinated for COVID. Why? A new study by the Williams Institute at UCLA finds older LGBTQ plus Americans were affected more negatively by the COVID-19 pandemic than their straight peers. Using data from the U.S. Census Household Pulse Survey, the report examined the demographics, health, and economic experiences of LGBTQ plus adults aged 50 and older during the COVID-19 pandemic. The study was led by research data analyst Lauren J.A. Bouton with Amanda M. Brush and Elon H. Meyer, Distinguished Senior Scholar of Public Policy. The study found the following: almost all LGBTQ plus people over 50 received the COVID-19 vaccine, a higher percentage than their straight peers. More people aged 50 to 64 identified as lesbian, gay, bisexual, or transgender than those 65 years of age and older. More men than women over 50 identified as LGBTQ plus. The opposite of younger age groups where women predominate. Similar proportions among all LGBTQ plus ethnic groups reported relying on credit cards or loans and savings or retirement to supplement their incomes during the pandemic. More white LGBTQ plus people reported using the same income sources they used before the pandemic to meet their spending needs. And reported anxiety and depression numbers during the pandemic were higher among LGBTQ plus individuals than their straight counterparts. Okay, so
so to break it down,
to break it down is that it's the same story that we've been talking about.
What we live,
as what we're living. The disparity between the classes and the economic separation, the removal or disappearance of the middle class, and it affects the LGBTQ plus community harder than our hetero and straight counterparts. But then it hits our brown, black communities even more so. Harder. Yeah. So, why did everyone why did our community go out and get COVID?
Well, there's also the memory, the built-in memory of the AIDS crisis.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, if you lived through it, which I did, you know that there's something for it, but then I'm going to go take it.
Yeah.
And also in our community, there's a barrier to employment for a lot of people because we're LGBTQ. Right. That's why many of us work in the service industry, because it's one of the few industries that's accepting of our community. And when pandemic hit, you own a restaurant, you know more than anyone how that just destroyed so many people's lives and made it so difficult, especially in our community. So as soon as there was a chance to get some sort of protection, we rushed for it. Yeah. We needed life to be as close to normal as it could be so we could survive again.
I need to concur with what Dale said, because that was exactly my thought process. I got through one plague and I survived one. I'm going to do everything. I am still masking and neti potting and doing everything in my power to keep this away from me, including all 5 shots.
Yeah. Well, we believe in science in our community. That's right, for sure, right?
We do believe in science.
All right. Well, next we clear up the world view. Japanese Prime Minister sacks Aide over his homophobic comments and apologizes. Japan's Prime Minister Fumio Kishida on Saturday, February 4th, fired an aide over his homophobic comments. Masayoshi Arai, an economy and trade official, had said that he wouldn't like to live next to lesbian, gay, bisexual, or transgender couples. He also said that people would flee Japan if same-sex marriages were permitted. In his controversial comments, he even said that he would not like to even look at same-sex couples. Arai joined Kishida's staff in October. Speaking to reporters later in the day, the Japanese Prime Minister said he had dismissed Arai. The Prime Minister said, quote, Arai's comments are outrageous and completely incompatible with the administration's policies, end quote. Arai's comment can lead to embarrassment for Kishida as he prepares to receive G7 nation leaders in May. Unlike Japan, which has been ruled by the conservative Liberal Democratic Party for most of the past 7 decades, the rest of the G7 nations allow marriage or civil unions for same-sex couples. Kishida is battling to keep his approval ratings high as opinion polls showed that his public support had halved to 30% last year. His government was hit by scandal-tainted resignations by senior officials. Well, Japan is always not in such a great light in the news, and this is not really surprising, but I'm really glad to hear that he was sacked, because I think that's a good thing. It's a good step.
Japan, they're very traditionalist. They're very conservative. Not as crazy authoritarian as China, but you know they stand on tradition, and it's good to see the Prime Minister embracing, because generally the people of Japan are very accepting of everybody, even when it comes to traditions in their culture. Yeah, I'm glad he got fired so quickly. That's amazing, actually.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing. And the G7 happening there, that's a pretty interesting thing too, right just before that.
Yeah, it sends an international message, and it's clear where he stands. And I think that right now is a great time for leaders across the world to start standing up for human rights and for the things that actually matter. And you know, maybe we will be able to avoid any more unnecessary wars.
And we want to be a stark contrast to the nations that are very unaccepting. Correct. That are very, right. You know, all the nations that we know. So,
yeah.
Okay, let's queer up trans rights. LGBTQ plus counter-protestors sing to YMCA to drown out anti-trans rally. Queer joy took center stage in Glasgow, Scotland, when a group of LGBTQ plus and allied counter-protestors danced and sang at the top of their lungs to drown out an anti-trans rally taking place in the city's major square. The, quote, Let Women Speak rally was hosted by Posey Parker, a well-known British trans exclusionary radical feminist, or TERF. Cabaret Against Hate Speech planned the counter-protest, which was attended by hundreds of people. To ensure no one could hear Parker's rhetoric, the group blasted YMCA, Lady Gaga, Liza Minnelli, Time Warp, and more, and also featured performances and speeches. There is a tweet going viral showing a video of the protesters doing a conga line and shouting, quote, trans rights to the tune of Frankie Valli's Can't Take My Eyes Off of You. The counter-protest even reportedly included on-site medics and mental health professionals to take care of anyone physically or mentally harmed by hate speech coming from the TERF rally. Beth Douglas, a co-convener of the Scottish Greens Party's LGBTQ plus wing, told Pink News that Parker's protest was filled with out-of-towners, whereas the joy-filled counter-protest was a local affair.
I guess we don't have the video. So.
I just want to thank Scotland for bringing my dream of Antifa to reality.
When I read this, I was so upset.
I want to know what interesting words they added to the English language, because cockwomble was not enough for me.
I was so upset when I first read this, because I thought it was Parker Posey when it's Posey Parker. I'm like, I'm not going to be able to watch her movies anymore. I love these counter-protests. It's a great non-violent way to just bring joy and happiness. Let Women Speak is not about women's rights. It's completely about attacking transgender women. No. It's not even about protecting the rights of cisgender women. They don't even care about that. It's just to attack, and it's terrible.
You know, I look at this and I go, when you hear the fact that most of the protesters were out-of-towners, what I love is seeing, you know, like Lady Gaga out there and bringing her star power to it, because, you know, wherever Lady Gaga goes, so do the cameras. And so when she brings that star power to, a protest like this, it's really great, because that's how we're going to keep the visibility on these folks. And like you said, let women speak. Well, here's one speaking for you right now. So next, we are proud of our special partnership with Sunshine Cathedral, the world's largest queer church here in Fort Lauderdale. Supporting that partnership, we are broadcasting from our permanent set here at Sunshine Cathedral at the Happening Out television studios. We broadcast Sunshine Cathedral Sunday International Service at 10:30 a.m. every week.
I'm Gabe Salazar, Artistic Director of the Gay Men's Chorus of South Florida, and Sunshine Cathedral is my queer church.
We're all scrolling ahead, folks. That's the nature of live TV. It is what it is. Here we are. That is today's news. That is today's news for the LGBT plus community on the world's first and only daily LGBTQ plus evening news show.
If our community is important to you, share this news with your friends and family. Are you, like most of America, part of our very large television audience, watching this live LGBTQ plus news broadcast right now on Roku, Apple TV, Android TV, and Amazon Fire TV?
Queer News Tonight is the only live LGBTQ plus digital television show in the world that is out of the closet and into the headlines. We need your support. If our community is to grow, we must tell our stories and bring them to the attention of the broader world.
This is the only place in the world that tells these types of LGBTQ plus stories in sound and motion. That is the passion of Hotspots Magazine, Happening Out Television Network, and Queer News Tonight.
I'm your anchor, David Hopkins, and on behalf of these LGBTQ plus reporters, the anchors of Queer News Tonight, including Chef Josie, Buddy Frey, Dale Stine, and Bob Hentschel, we'll see you daily at 8 p.m. To everyone in our LGBTQ plus community, we wish you a good night.
LGBTQ plus news is vital for our community and for the broader world as a whole. We have enough enemies at Fox News. Tucker, Sean, and Lara are loud. We need passionate allies. Happening Out Television Network, Queer News Tonight, and It's Happening Out are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. Our community needs your support. Like this broadcast and subscribe now to ensure the growth of the